Hello, everyone. Welcome to Realization Hub. Today, I wanted to go over the full moon in Aries happening on October 17th. This is a powerful full moon, and it's going to be bringing up a lot of those old wounds up to the surface on an individual level for all of us. Now, this full moon is highlighting a particular archetype that shows up in our relationships, and that is the warrior archetype. The warrior archetype is that part of us that can express in certain ways. It has a certain function that we can draw on to serve us in our life and in our experiences. That warrior archetype is the part of us that knows how to bring our truth down into the body and embody it. That warrior archetype is that part of us that knows how to bring our dreams into the physical and manifest it. That warrior archetype is that part of us that knows how to obliterate and get rid of any obstacles that are in the way so that we can live out our experience, so that we can manifest what we want and what we desire, so that we can bring our gifts into the world in a real way. However, we have so many experiences with this archetype that when we expose ourselves to experiences that are dark or negative or painful, we can become a wounded warrior. And this is the vibe that is coming up in this full moon. That wounded warrior stuff is coming up to the surface and it's going to be seen within you. It might be a very internal full moon in which you're becoming aware of your own defense mechanisms, your own tendencies to fight, your own tendencies to block off connection, your own tendencies to maybe victimize or approach your goals in very indirect ways. Those wounds where we're so drawn into the pain and to the hurt and into the wounds that we project outwards onto other people and we forget that maybe something different is happening even though we're triggered. So this is an opportunity for very deep healing. This is like a warp speed, transformative, alchemical healing process that is happening around this full moon. So whatever is coming up at this time, whatever might be causing friction for you, what might feel intense for you, what might feel very triggering for you, it's an opportunity to really go within, to really bring your presence to yourself and go through and allow this healing process to happen. So let's get into the actual astrology and the transits and what's going on at this time. By the way, guys, my name is Michelle. If you don't know me, it's your first time here at Realization Hub. I teach sensitive and awakened souls how to be in command of their energy, how to manage their energy. I also teach people how to develop their intuition so that they can navigate their spiritual transformations with clarity, ease, and empowerment. I do that through offering one-on-one sessions. I offer intuitive readings, energy healings, and energy management coaching. I also offer natal chart readings to get a really good snapshot of your whole energy dynamics, as well as any important transits that may be influencing you at this time. On top of that, I offer group sessions and online classes so that I can teach you how to develop that intuition and how to manage your energy so that you can navigate both the energetic world as well as the physical world with a lot of certainty. So let's get into what's going on at this full moon now. The full moon is in Aries. It's going to be at the 24th degree. This gives that full moon peaking in this energy of Aries. Aries is a fiery sign. It's also a sign that's a cardinal sign. So it naturally takes initiative. It naturally takes initiative and action. It can really spark things into action. Okay. Not so good at carrying things out into fullness, can easily maybe get bored. It's also an energy that is passionate. It's an energy that can um, not just initiate something, but be really brave and pierce into the unknown. Um, it's self-focused. It's a very individual energy. It's an energy that can bring a lot of awareness to ourselves on an individual level and what we need and advocate for ourselves in any given experience. Okay? Because the moon is going to be in the 24th degree, that's going to be in the third decan of Aries, um, which is more of a flexible version of Aries. It's um, it's kind of like a side of Aries that can be more growth oriented, more adventurous. Also, a side of Aries that can be more kind of flexible or adaptable in its nature. Okay. And maybe even more philosophical and learning through its experiences. Now, the interesting thing right off the bat with this full moon is that it's going to be conjunct Chiron. Chiron is the wounded healer. It's going to show us our wounds, but it's also going to give us the wisdom that we need to heal our wounds. Okay. So it's kind of like a medicine man in some ways. It's going to point out our wounds, it's going to make it obvious what is wounded here, but it's also going to give us that opportunity to heal our wounds. Whenever we go into a healing space, we first have to become aware of what is not working. We first have to become aware of the dysfunction or the imbalance or the limitation or the suffering. And once we become aware of that, then we can take a step towards healing that. And so that's what's happening in this full moon. Likely, we're coming into a type of clarity or insight about ourselves where we are revealing something limited inside of us, something that is imbalanced inside of us, something that's old, okay? Something likely that has been suppressed, okay? That's coming up to the surface for us to see, and then that gives us the opportunity to heal that. Now, we also have this full moon conjunct Eris. Eris is the goddess of chaos and discord, okay? Now, likely whatever this wounding is, it may have caused a lot of frustration inside of us, a lot of chaos or discord within us, or because it's in opposition here with Libra, the sun in Libra, and even Juno here conjuncting the sun in Libra, this is likely a wound that has not just created frustration and chaos and discord within us, but it's also played a role in some imbalances that have played out in our relationships, especially those long-term relationships, like our partnerships, whether it be romantic partnerships, work partnerships, our family, our friends, those long-term partnerships. Okay, the other cool thing that I like to point out here is Hygeia, the goddess of miraculous healing, is also going to be in conjunction with this full moon, which brings about this kind of old wound up to the surface that has caused us a lot of trouble in ourselves and in our relationships, going through kind of a miraculous, transformative, alchemical, like transmutation process. Okay. Something that happens outside of your own mind. It's not something you can figure out. It's not something that you can analyze. It's something that happens for you. It's like the magic of healing that's happening at this full moon. So I recommend that whatever comes up to the surface at this time, you try not to let your mind take over. Try not to let your mind try to figure it out. Try not to let your mind analyze all of it, but instead practice staying open to the healing that's happening outside of your mind, beyond your mind, that's happening more on a spiritual level, on an energetic level, and to, let your mind kind of get distracted or possibly focus on other things while you're going through a deep change, or a deep rebalancing on an individual level. Okay, so the full moon is always going to be in opposition with the sun. The sun is in Libra, kind of focusing in on that Libra energy, which highlights the need for harmony and balance in our relationships. But I'll tell you what, this is following that solar eclipse in Libra. This is the first full moon after that new moon. It's a part of that eclipse cycle, okay? And that wasn't necessarily a feel-good Libra kind of new beginning. That new moon solar eclipse in Libra was conjunct Lilith. And so it was really highlighting some of our shadow sides that show up in relationships that we have got to let go of. Some of those things that may be suppressed, some of those things that might not be fair, some of those things that are just out of balance, like old power dynamics that are old, we've outgrown them, and we have to let go of them. So it's a very kind of shadowy work kind of time in our relationships, but it's for the benefit of having harmony and balance in our long-term relationships. And so this is the first full moon that's giving us a big opportunity to release a lot of this wounded stuff that shows up in ourselves, but also plays out in our relationships. Now, one of the things that I have to mention that I mentioned before is that Mars is going to be in detriment here in Cancer, which means it just doesn't function well here. Mars is a planet of passion. It's a planet of motivation, where we're putting the most energy in our lives. It's the way we move through our challenges and our obstacles and get shit done. Okay, and it's in Cancer, which is a caring sign, a nurturing sign, and a sensitive sign, also emotional, intuitive, and kind of a moody sign. And Mars, it likes to be direct. It's at home in Aries. This is an Aries full moon. It can be very comfortable in Aries. It can go fast. It can be direct, sometimes too direct. Okay, it can be bust through those obstacles in a very fast and direct way. Whereas in Cancer, this is where it's very weakened. Okay, it's acting more like a crab. Let's approach our obstacles in really indirect, zigzag ways. And instead of being direct, let's be indirect and passive aggressive and moody. And let's actually try to shield our vulnerabilities and not really be, upfront about what's hurting our feelings and what we're feeling intuitively. It struggles in Cancer. It really does struggle in Cancer. But not only that, it's at a freaking T-square with the sun and the moon. So what does that mean? That means there is a very strong challenge going on around this full moon, a conflict of sorts that we're having on an individual level, as well as possibly in our relational dynamics, showing up in the way we work through conflicts, the way we work through challenges, and the way we work through obstacles. Okay, something of a sensitive nature, maybe something of an emotional nature, something of a intuitive nature that we're not being very direct about, something that might feel very sensitive, something where we might be vulnerable, and something that we're guarding and that we care about and that we want to protect and nurture at the same time. That kind of thing. And what's happening is that there's kind of this conflict going on. This could be an internal conflict. It could also very much be playing out externally with other people. And what I'm noticing the most about this is Mars can represent that warrior archetype within us. And Aries is ruled by Mars, right? And Aries is kind of that energy where it's like the warrior, it is brave and it can go into the unknown and it's not afraid to just, pierce through the unknown, initiate action, um, you know, and and get something started, right? Maybe even to like fight, Aries can be kind of known to fight sometimes. Every single one of these energies has its like its qualities that shine, and then all of these signs, also have like their shadow nature to them, so Aries does know how to fight. Same with like Scorpios, they're also ruled by Mars. They know how to fight. um but this is kind of indicating this square here, not just a conflict, but this conjunction with Chiron, wounds, wounds around the way we fight. The wounded warrior is very, very loud during this full moon release. Okay. We are looking at warrior wounds right now. Okay. So this is going to be not just where we're vulnerable, but these vulnerabilities that are getting triggered at this time, where we feel oversensitive, ultra sensitive, like getting triggered about the smallest, littlest things. That is pointing a big golden arrow at your wounds that need for you to bring more of your awareness to so that you can heal them. Okay, these are warrior wounds. This is where we get too defensive. This is where we get passive aggressive. This is where we aren't open to critical feedback or constructive feedback, and instead we get defensive. Instead we get moody. Instead we get passive aggressive, or we start crying and sulking, instead of being mature and being growth oriented and learning about what we need and what other people need, or advocating for yourself, or respecting each other's boundaries. Like, when the warrior is wounded, it has to fight for its boundaries. It has to fight for its needs. It has to fight for what it wants. It has to battle it out. It has to resist. It has to have all these dysfunctional ways of fighting in order to get what it wants, in order to get what it needs, in order to make things real in the relationship or in the reality that it desires. And it's wounded. It's it's not working for it's likely not working for you as an individual, and it's likely not working for the harmony and balance in your relationships either. And that's the challenge. That is the growth period. Okay. And it's really asking us to take that energy and um, that motivation, and to take it inside into the waters of Cancer. We have to go within around this full moon. By the way, Chiron is retrograde, Eris is retrograde, Hygeia is retrograde. This is an internal healing opportunity. Okay. And basically, what it's pointing out here is where it would benefit us when we feel emotionally injured, or where we feel emotionally vulnerable or sensitive, or our intuition is going off, to go within instead of fighting outside of us, fighting other people, defending ourselves, poking other people, pointing out their problems, is to actually go within and handle your own wounds, handle what needs to be handled within you. This is a great time to do parts work, to work with those parts of you, to work with those wounded aspects of you, to understand their story, to observe their story, and to ultimately connect with what it is that you need so that you can be clear and get that need met in a new way, in an innovative way, not in the old wounded way, the dysfunctional way. Okay? So that's the first challenge that's showing up here. That's creating friction around this time. And again, this could be very internal for a lot of people. It could also be playing out externally. Definitely will be playing out externally for other people. The other thing I want to point out is that Pluto is going to be at the 29th degree in Capricorn. Okay. Finally, Pluto is going to be moving direct. It's going to be very slow. Okay. But it's finally moving direct at this time. I feel like a lot of you are cheering. Um, but it's still going to be at the 29th degree. And so it's still wrapping up this old karmic cycle in Capricorn that's been happening for 16 years. Okay. And so likely this is another opportunity, having a full moon here, to release old power dynamics showing up in your relationships. Okay. The other thing to point out here is Pluto is also in a T square. It's squaring the moon. Okay. It's also squaring the sun. All right, so we've got a T square in the cardinal signs. We've got a grand cross actually in the cardinal signs. All right, which just means there is going to be this internal friction, okay, of having to kind of be aware of a lot of different things happening at once inside of you, really balancing out your individual needs, how to be diplomatic in a relationship, as well as attending to your wounds and your sensitivities and kind of guarding, um, those vulnerable wounds, advocating for your own healing and what you need, but doing that as diplomatic as possible. At the same time, probably having to make boundaries, probably having to make internal boundaries or external boundaries, depending on what kind of wound is coming up to the surface. Okay. Challenging, very challenging its own way, in that it is a very strong growth opportunity for healing. Like if you can sit in the pressure cooker of this transformation, you're going to come out with much more ability to maintain balance and harmony in your relationships. But you have to kind of sit in the pressure cooker of this and really make sure you are owning your own energy dynamics internally at this time. Okay. Instead of letting it be like this wrecking ball that just, you know, flies out all around you in a big healing mess. All right. So I don't think it's going to be that bad for everyone. But for some people it could be intense depending on your placements. For example, like if you have personal placements like your sun, moon, rising, ascendant, Mercury, Venus, or Mars in these later degrees of Aries, or these later degrees of Libra, these later degrees of Cancer, or the later degrees of Capricorn, you're definitely going to be feeling this the most. The cardinal signs, again, Aries, Cancer, Libra, and Capricorn, those are the signs that are going to be feeling this the most. All right. So, especially if you have personal placements at those later degrees. All right. So, for those people, you might be feeling the friction the most. And it's asking you to allow a healing to happen, an internal healing to happen. Okay? It's asking you to be aware of where you have these warrior wounds. Where have you been too direct? Where have you been too self-focused? Where have you not been aware of the other person? Where have you been too defensive or passive aggressive? These are the things showing up. Where are you, demanding that your needs be met, but you're not being receptive to the entire experience or the entire relational dynamic that's happening. There's a lot that can come up around this time. Okay, but this is where we're kind of trying to embody our truth in very small, powerless, victim-y ways. Okay, and this is the opportunity to come out of that and stand in your power in a real way, in a bigger, more mature way, in a more integrated way. Okay, so it's a very beautiful healing opportunity. But yeah, it could be karmic in nature, having a karmic kind of ending, in nature happening here. I'm just going to throw it out there. Some of us could be seeing some things falling apart, some things getting destabilized in relationships for the purpose of it being reorganized, restructured, or this could be a release point where, you walk away. That's very possible too. Again, this plays out uniquely for every person. And so there's no way to predict the black and white outcome of what it's going to be for you. If you want to get more context on how this is showing up for you in your life, you're going to want to look at your charts, your personal chart, and see the house where Aries is ruling that house. That's where the full moon is. That's where that ending or healing is happening. Okay. So we've talked a little bit about this huge transformative kind of like alchemical healing process that's happening with us on an individual level that impacts our relationships, um, that ultimately helps us embody a higher form of that warrior archetype within us. Okay, the part of us that is here to help us bring our dreams into reality and align with our soul's purpose here, and to embody our truth. Okay, that's the warrior, that's the divine warrior, and we're getting a beautiful healing around that. Okay, we're getting a karmic healing around that. Another thing I want to point out is Venus is going to be at the 29th degree in Scorpio, which is going to give us a sextile to Pluto at the 29th degree. And it's also going to be opposing Uranus in Taurus. All right, let's talk about the opposition with Uranus. This is like a disruption of patterns. It's a disruption of deep patterns, okay, in our relationships. This could be our relationships, it could be our values, it can also be our money and our finances. Okay, this could definitely disrupt something, like destabilize something. This is something that shakes something up. I see this opposition as something that destabilizes deep patterns in our relationships, as well as it could possibly be showing up as well with our money and finances and our values, right? And our sense of self-worth. There's something getting shaken up here. There's something that is starting to destabilize and fall apart. And when I look at that intuitively, it looks like old power structures collapsing. Okay. Now, on a personal level, this is awesome. This is like having an old system of power inside of you that gets disrupted and falls apart. Okay. I say that because we have Neptune, which dissolves things, okay, dissolves things and brings them into heightened states of spiritual expression. This is trining Venus. It's also sextile to Uranus. And so what I see here is this disruption that's happening, this shock or this shakeup that's happening It's here to dissolve something, to let it fall apart. Okay. So this could be some internal power, uh, power dynamics that are just falling apart. So some of you are asking, I can like sense it in the air, like, what do you mean by power dynamics, like a power structure? Let's say you have a pattern with authority, where you always get, pushed to the side. You're never allowed to shine your light. And authority figures constantly suppress you or punish you or abuse you. And that is like a power imbalance. Okay. It's like something that keeps repeating. It's a power imbalance. We see power imbalances all the time in society. There's a huge gap right now with money in our society. We have billionaires, and then we have the disappearing middle class, and then we have people who feel enslaved to their jobs, working corporate jobs or service-oriented jobs, feeling enslaved, like they're just working paycheck to paycheck, right? And that creates a power imbalance where these people are just working and they have less and less freedom and less ability to change their lives in a way that works for them. Meanwhile, we have very rich people who are influencing the government, influencing major systems on the planet, who are controlling everything. That is a power imbalance. Okay. We have that going on across the board. Okay. Pluto being in Capricorn over the last 16 years has been highlighting the benefits of our systems and the benefits of structure. It's also been highlighting the shadow side of these structures, the shadow side of these systems. And boy, have we been seeing that. We have been seeing the shadow side of the government, the shadow side of money, the shadow side of authority, the shadow side of hierarchy and systems that work better for the people that are privileged and in positions of authority and in positions of money, and do not benefit the people at the lower end of the totem pole. Okay. So that is what we are seeing. We are seeing major power imbalances, and we're seeing a destabilization happening around this time where a major power structure falls apart. Okay. It's happening within us in our own energy on an individual level. Okay, so that we can actually get out of our own way and create and receive our dreams and make that a physical reality. That's what's happening on an individual level. And whatever is getting shaken up in your personal life is meant to help you heal and help you realign with your soul's purpose right now. Okay, it's a realignment, it's a reorientation, and you might not like it. It could be uncomfortable, but it's going to serve you, right? What we could see on a collective level is a major power structure falling apart. Now, Venus has to do with our relations. Okay. It also has to do with money and finances and our values. Okay. So we might see something happening with a financial system, a financial structure of some kind, some, you know, having it, having Venus in Scorpio, is even more kind of money oriented. Scorpio is strategic with money. It's good with money. And it's also a sign that um, is not only deep and intense, but it really values trust because Scorpio can see through manipulation and it can see through power games very well. Scorpio is a very psychologically um, gifted sign. It's a very psychic sign. It knows how to go into the subconscious and really dig out primal, kind of unevolved kind of stuff and take it through an evolutionary metamorphosis process and bring it into spiritual heights. And so we've got Venus here doing that, in our relationships and with our money and with our values. And, so we might see something play out in society Could be where we see things like, that there's a huge in the United States, there's this huge kind of revealing that's going on, with Hollywood and P. Diddy and like the sex, the sexual things that have been going on, the sexual assaults, money and power and, possibly like sex trafficking and just a bunch of people involved with that. And that's an example of Scorpio type energies as well. Scorpio is a sexual sign. It rules those sexual organs, and so it can very much bring a destabilization and a structure of power down. I mean, this could be like where a whole sex trafficking organization or system falls apart or gets revealed. It could be something financially related. It could be something, you know um, of that nature. But what it does is it destabilizes it and it destroys it. So I do see this as something being like a tower moment. For most of us, that's going to be an internal energetic tower that falls apart, like a spiritual release, a spiritual change, an energetic release, an energetic change. But for some of us, that could be external, like, where something changes in our relationships, or we see something in society and in the world go through, a tower moment of sorts. Okay. There could be some kind of collapse going on here. But again, this is for the purpose of dissolving something to reorient us, okay, in a new direction that's better for ourselves, okay, on individual levels. We have the opportunity to create change from this. We have the opportunity to bring in more creativity and innovation around this. We have the opportunity to honor our value, our worth, and what makes us different and what we need to change to kind of help us on an individual level and meet our different needs. I do want to point out here with Venus in sextile with Pluto at the 29th degree, this is a critical degree, it's an anaretic degree, it's a volatile degree. Okay? Things are usually in like a destabilized state here because it's kind of like this threshold between two worlds that we're in. It's like the transition of ending something and about to step into something new. And so there's kind of like this friction here. And this is karmic. Whatever is happening, it's kind of like karmic, it's a part of an ending. It's helping us end something that needs to end. It's supporting us in that. But again, anytime you have Pluto involved here, it could feel intense. It could feel like you have to face your shadows and some of that dark stuff within us, the wounded stuff within us. We have to face the shadows of society. It gives us the opportunity to face that, but also change it. Pluto is in a trine with Uranus. So whatever ending, purging, collapsing is going on, it is for the the transformation of bringing innovative change into our worlds on an individual level as well as in society. I want to point out that Lilith is going to be in opposition here with the North Node. So we are maybe going against the grain from what we typically do around this time. We are maybe dealing with something that I'm just gonna shoot some possibilities here, but this could bring up a rebellious side of us. It could bring up a side of us that's just, gonna do something differently, gonna advocate for more fairness, in our relationships. This could be a part of us that, has suppressed something and is now going to, you know, go in the direction of putting ourselves first in a situation. Being more self-focused as a way to rebalance the scales of something that was imbalanced in our relationships or or with our values or our money, things like that. It's also interesting. It's in conjunction here. Lilith. Lilith is in conjunction here with Saturn. There's something going on here that might indicate a blind spot with our boundaries and our responsibilities that we need to be aware of. Intuitively, what I'm picking up about this in conjunction with Lilith is that some of us have been taking on too much of a role as 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 helping others, serving others, pleasing others, kind of like a bumblebee. Like they have that role of being a pollinator. Like they just go from flower to flower and they, collect up the pollen and they pollinate all these flowers. And, they're helping all the flowers. They're helping all the flowers, in their reproductive process. It's a necessary part of it. And they have this ingrained role of doing that. They have a huge role in the plant kingdom, to pollinate. And but that's kind of become their only role, right? And so I feel like there's something showing up with Lilith around, this Pisces energy where maybe we've taken a healing role in our relationships. We've taken too much of a responsibility of healing others, being a martyr, self-sacrificing, too much of a role of peacemaker, too much of a role of mediator, like too much of a role of doing that. And it's become our only role. And it's like, yeah, that role is important. Like we all need to know how to heal our relationships and heal other people and be forgiving and compromising and even self-sacrificing and being empathic and compassionate for other people. And then we also have to realize that's not our only role. It's actually going to be dysfunctional if that's your only role in relationships and you're actually suppressing your individual self in the process. And this might be indicating where we actually need to stand more in some boundaries with these parts of us that constantly are self-sacrificing, these parts of us that are constantly taking responsibility for other people and their experience, these parts of us that are constantly wanting to heal and constantly wanting to always make things work, constantly forgiving. You catch my drift here. This might be a blind spot where maybe there's some situations where we just need to not take responsibility for, um, other people's stuff, where we need to be more boundaried internally with our own nature, where we might overstep, and also externally where we're letting other people overstep. This might be highlighting a blind spot around internal and external boundaries related to some of these wounds and shadow sides of us. The last thing I want to say is that Jupiter is going to be in Gemini retrograding. And it kind of gives me a vibe. It's not Mercury retrograde, but it's kind of giving me that vibe of Mercury retrograde because, Gemini is all about communicating. Gemini is all about those social interactions, communicating, networking, being a social butterfly, and how we grow and have experiences and opportunities for expansion around our communication and around our social interactions. And Jupiter going retrograde here, you know, indicates that we have opportunities for a lot more growth internally where we might need to rework the way we're interacting with other people in our communication and in our social skills and all of those things. It is going to be in a sextile with the moon. So we have the opportunity to probably rework some of that communication. We also have a trine with the sun. It's going to be a beautiful, supportive way to bring balance and harmony in our relationships. This could be a wonderful conversation. I mean, we could have some beautiful conversations coming up around this time. You might be working out conflict with someone else, but it could be a beautiful conversation, that allows a lot of personal growth around your social interactions. think the most challenging part showing up here is that there is a square with Vesta in Virgo. And Vesta is like that inner flame, and it's like a sacred flame. And so I do see this as that opportunity of, whatever comes up, around our individual needs and our relationships, we can burn away some of the parts of us that have been too critical or um, too perfectionistic or too caught up in the details. Yeah. So Vesta's also like in a trine here with Pluto and with Uranus and even with Sedna. And so we might have attachments. We may have been attached to something. Maybe we're attaching to certain details that we need to let go of. We're like holding on to details really tightly that we need to let go of. They're getting in the way, and allow that to be a sacred process of transformation. And so that we can, really liberate ourselves, really come into a new innovative way of showing up with more self-worth. I definitely think we're seeing a healing happening that helps us increase our self-worth in general. And so if that's happening individually, what's curious and what we need to be curious about is, how is that going to look in society? How is that going to look in society when we finally start shifting this Pluto in Aquarius for the next 20 years, where we're all showing up with a lot more self-worth, where we know we deserve better, we want more, and we deserve better, and we can have more? How does that start to play out in society? Okay, guys, it was really fun looking over the full moon chart with you. Again, what I'd recommend for this full moon is that this could bring up a lot of tension and friction within you. It could bring up tendencies to want to fight and battle it out. And I recommend that if you are having conversations at this time, that you lean into that healing space, where you're willing to grow and you're willing to change and you're willing to look at some of the details and let them go, that you're willing to do the work, that you're willing to make boundaries with things that don't work for you, that you're willing to step into a higher version of you, that you value, that is valued by others, that you're willing to look at your wounds and look at where maybe those wounds have not been helping you or the people that you're relating to, and being willing to let those go. Okay. And just like really opening up and allowing to a transmutation around your own archetype of that warrior side of you, that side of you that wants to deliver your truth and your life purpose through you into the world, and the healing that has to happen for you in order to do that, and trusting the process and allowing that process, even if it means it reorients you in some way. So because this is a strong internal healing, I do recommend at this time that you kind of give yourself as much space as you need and give other people as much space as they need, while we're all working through some shadowy, intense stuff together. Okay. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please don't forget to like this video and subscribe to my channel and hit the notification bell if you want to be updated when I post new videos. I post new moon and full moon updates every single month. And if you want more information on how to work with me, like you are interested in a natal chart reading or looking at some of the current transits in your life and how it's impacting you, or anything I offer, you can find more information in the description box below. Okay, thank you everyone. Take care, bye.